The Arizona Territory in the late 1800s was a place where the land stretched wide and silent, with tall pines on one side and open desert on the other. People lived far apart, often miles from the nearest neighbor, and most days passed in quiet work. Cowboys rode the range watching over cattle, and Apache families lived close to the earth, following traditions that had survived many hard years. Even though they shared the same land, they rarely shared their lives. Misunderstandings had grown over time, and both sides learned to be cautious. Yet the land itself had a strange way of bringing lives together when least expected. Caleb Turner was one of those people the land shaped. He was a tall, calm cowboy in his early 30s, with weathered hands and eyes that had seen many sunrises from horseback. He lived alone in a small cabin built near a narrow creek. Ranch work had taught him patience, and he had become known for solving problems without raising his voice. Caleb believed in fairness, and many people respected him for it. Even some Apache families recognized him as someone who minded his own business and did not create trouble. One dry evening, Caleb was riding back from checking the far fence line. The sky glowed orange, and the air carried a warm breeze that held the smell of dust and pine. He planned to reach his cabin before nightfall. But as he guided his horse through a rocky wash, he noticed something unusual near a cluster of large boulders. At first he thought it was an animal, but the shape did not move like a deer or a coyote. It lay still, half covered by shadows. Caleb slowed his horse and listened. The land was quiet, too quiet. He felt a small pull in his chest, a sense that something was wrong. Carefully, he dismounted and approached. As he stepped closer, he realized it was a person, a woman. She was lying on her side, her hair loose and tangled, her clothes dusty, as if she had walked a long distance. Her breathing was shallow. He knelt beside her and gently called out, but she did not respond at first. Caleb hesitated, unsure whether touching her might frighten her, especially since she appeared to be Apache. Respect was something he tried to keep in every situation. After a moment, the woman stirred. Her eyes opened slightly, and she looked up at him as if trying to focus. Her voice came out weak and strained. "I can't take it anymore. Hurry," she whispered. Her words were enough to tell him she needed help. And urgently. Caleb did not ask questions right then. He offered her water from his canteen and waited as she drank slowly. Her hands trembled, and it was clear she had been exhausted for a long time. When she tried to sit up, her legs gave out beneath her. Caleb caught her gently, making sure she stayed steady. He could see she had no strength left. The land in this area was unforgiving, and when someone pushed their body too far, it often ended badly. Caleb knew he could not leave her there. He also knew that bringing an Apache woman back to a ranching cabin might raise questions from others, but no one else was around. It was just the two of them, and she needed help more than he needed certainty. With care, he lifted her into his arms. She was light, as if she had not eaten enough for days. His horse stood patiently as he carried her over, and Caleb positioned her gently across the saddle before climbing up behind her. He held her steady as he turned the horse toward his cabin, urging it forward at a smooth, controlled pace so she would not be jostled too much. During the ride, the woman drifted in and out of awareness. Once or twice, her eyes opened, and she looked around. Confused. Caleb spoke softly to reassure her. "You're safe for now. I'm taking you somewhere you can rest." She did not speak again, but the tension in her shoulders eased. When they reached the cabin, the sun had nearly set. A warm glow settled over the clearing, and crickets had begun to sing in the grass. Caleb carried the woman inside, placing her on his small bed, the softest place he had. He fetched clean water, a damp cloth, and a blanket. He did everything slowly, carefully, never forgetting that trust between strangers, especially strangers from different worlds, had to be earned. The woman's face was tired, but even in her exhaustion she carried an air of strength. Her long black hair framed her features, and although her clothes were dusty from travel, they showed the simple beauty of her Apache culture. Caleb recognized the patterns stitched into the fabric. He wondered what situation had pushed her to such a point that she would collapse alone in the wilderness. After some time, she began to regain her voice. She sat up a little with Caleb's help and drank more water. When she finally spoke, her tone was soft and slightly cautious. "My name is Nalina," she said. I walked too far. I had no choice." Caleb nodded, letting her speak at her own pace. He did not interrupt. "I needed help," she continued, her breathing still uneven. "I thought I could reach someone before my body gave out." Caleb felt a wave of sympathy. Not pity, just understanding that she had faced something difficult and lonely. He knew the land could wear down even the strongest person if they carried too much stress or walked too many miles without rest. "You did reach someone," he said gently. "You reached me. You're safe for tonight." Nalina lowered her eyes for a moment, as if trying to hold her emotions steady. She seemed surprised by his kindness, perhaps even unsure if she should trust it. Years of tension between their communities had taught her to be careful. Caleb sensed her hesitation and did not push her to explain more. He simply made sure she had water, a blanket, and space to breathe. Outside, the night settled fully. The moon rose high, bathing the cabin in soft silver light. The sound of the creek nearby created a steady rhythm that helped calm the atmosphere. Nalina rested under the blanket, and Caleb sat nearby in a wooden chair, keeping a respectable distance but staying close enough in case she needed anything. As hours passed, she spoke little, but her breathing grew steadier. Caleb wondered what journey she had been on. What weight had caused her to say those desperate words earlier? He could tell it was not simple tiredness. There had been fear in her voice and urgency, but he also knew that trust did not bloom instantly. She had been through something, and he would allow her to choose when she was ready to share it. At one point, Nalina opened her eyes again and looked at him with a mix of gratitude and disbelief. "You did not have to help me," she said softly. Caleb replied with a quiet smile. "Sometimes doing the right thing is simple. Sometimes it's the only choice a person can live with." Her expression softened. It had been a long time, perhaps, since someone outside her community had spoken to her with such sincerity. She lay back again, and for the first time since he found her, her face relaxed. The tension left her shoulders, and her breathing slowed as she finally drifted into a deeper sleep. Caleb stayed awake a while longer, listening to the sounds of the night and thinking about the strange turn his day had taken. He had left that morning expecting to fix fences and herd cattle. Instead, he had found a woman in need. A woman who carried a story he did not yet know. But he had a feeling that their meeting was not an accident. Something larger, something shaped by the land itself, had placed her in his path. For now, he simply let her rest. Whatever had brought her to that moment, the exhaustion, the fear, the urgency, would reveal itself in time. The important thing was that she was safe, warm, and no longer alone on the wide, unforgiving frontier. And though Caleb did not yet realize it, this unexpected meeting would change both of their lives in ways neither could have predicted. Morning arrived slowly, spreading soft golden light through the small cabin. Caleb woke early, as he always did. But this day felt different. There was a quiet sense of responsibility in the air. He glanced over at Nalina, who still slept peacefully beneath the woven blanket. Her breathing was steady, and the worry that had once tightened her features now seemed to have eased just a little. It reassured him to see her resting at last. He stepped outside to give her space and gather water from the creek. The cool morning air brushed against his skin, carrying the fresh scent of pine. Birds chirped from the treetops, greeting the new day. As Caleb filled a tin basin with water, he thought about the words she had whispered the night before. "I can't take it anymore. Hurry." Those words had carried more weight than simple exhaustion. They held a moment of emotional strain, maybe even fear, though she had not yet explained anything to him. When Caleb returned to the cabin, Nalina was awake. She was sitting up slowly, wrapped in the blanket, her dark hair falling gently over her shoulders. She watched him enter, her eyes alert but calm. Though her body seemed weak, there was strength in her gaze, strength that had been hidden beneath her exhaustion when he first found her. "You are feeling better?" he asked quietly, placing the basin on the table. "A little," she answered, her voice soft but clearer than before. My body is still tired, but I can think again. Caleb nodded and poured her a cup of warm tea he had made over the fire. She accepted it with a small nod of thanks, holding the cup between her hands for warmth. For a few minutes, neither of them spoke. The quiet inside the cabin felt comfortable, not heavy. Caleb believed that silence, when shared respectfully, could build trust just as much as words. Finally, Nalina lifted her gaze. "You want to know why I was in the wash," she said gently. He didn't want to push her, but her offer to explain told him she was ready. "Only if you wish to tell me," he replied. "You do not owe me anything." Her lips curved slightly, showing a hint of appreciation at his patience. "It is true I walked too far," she began. "But it was not only the distance that made my body give out. I had been moving from place to place for several days, trying to avoid certain troubles. Not danger, nothing like that," she added quickly, wanting to make sure he did not misunderstand. "Just a problem that had grown too heavy for me to carry alone." Caleb listened closely, giving her his full attention. He could tell this story was not easy for her to share. "In the past month," she continued, "a group of traveling traders came near our camp. They seemed friendly at first, asking questions and offering simple items for trade. But soon, they began asking for more than was reasonable. They wanted plants and herbs I collect for my people. Plants that take much time to gather and prepare. I told them I could not give so much to them, because my community needed them too." She paused to sip her tea, gathering her thoughts carefully. At first they seemed disappointed, but still polite. But as days passed, they returned again and again. They kept insisting I provide more herbs, more medicines, more than I could give. They were not unkind, but they were persistent, too persistent. Their requests became tiring, and it felt as though they did not understand the value of what they were asking. Caleb watched her expression gently shift. It was not frightened, it was simply worn down, the look of someone who had been pressured for too long. "My elders told me to stay calm and simply refuse," she said, "and I did. But the traders kept coming. They waited for me on the trails, asking again and again. They did not harm me, but their constant presence left me no peace. I would try to gather plants, and they would appear. I would walk home, and they would follow, offering deals and promises." Caleb nodded slowly. Persistent people, even without harmful intent, could still weigh heavily on someone's spirit, especially if they did not respect boundaries. "It became too much," she said quietly. "I could not sleep well. I could not focus on my work. My mind felt full of noise, even when the world around me was quiet. My people tried to help, but the traders were stubborn. They did not understand that I needed space, that I needed to work in peace." She looked at Caleb with eyes full of honesty. "I left the camp to find someone who could help me speak with them more firmly. I needed someone they would listen to, someone who could explain that they needed to respect our limits, but the journey was longer than I expected. The sun was hot. I did not rest enough. I pushed myself too far. That is why you found me the way you did." Caleb felt a deep sympathy rise within him. Her story was not dramatic, but it didn't need to be. It was human. It was real. Sometimes the heaviest burdens were the ones no one else noticed. "You carried all of that alone," he said softly. She nodded, her eyes dropping. "I thought I could handle it by myself. I did not want to trouble anyone. I thought I had to be strong. But sometimes, even strong people grow tired." Caleb's voice was gentle. "There is strength in knowing when you need help. You did the right thing trying to find someone who could assist you." Her shoulders loosened slightly, as though his words released a piece of the weight she had been holding. "I want to solve this peacefully," she said. "I do not want arguments or anger. I simply want space to do my work again without being followed each day." "I understand," Caleb replied. "And I think I can help." She looked up, surprised. "You? Why would you help me with something that is between my people and outsiders?" "Because you asked for help in the only way you could," he said simply. and because no one should feel so pressured that they must walk miles alone just to find a voice that might be heard. Nalina was quiet for a long moment. Then she gave a slow nod. "Thank you. It means more than you know." Caleb spent the rest of the morning preparing food, while Nalina rested. He made sure she ate something warm and nourishing. Though she insisted on helping a little despite her fatigue, she moved carefully, her steps slow but steady. Each moment seemed to return a bit more of her usual energy. As the sun climbed higher, they stepped outside together. The air was bright and fresh, filled with the warm glow of a clear day. Nalina walked a small circle around the cabin to stretch her muscles, and Caleb stayed nearby in case she needed support. Though still tired, she looked stronger now, as if the land itself was giving her strength again. As she walked, she spoke in soft tones about her home, her family, her purpose as a gatherer of herbs. She explained how each plant held meaning and care. Caleb listened with genuine interest. He respected people who worked with the land, no matter their background. At one point, she stopped and looked toward the distant hills. "My people always say the earth gives answers when the heart is quiet," she said. "Yesterday, my heart was too troubled to hear anything. Today, I feel something settling." "That's a good sign," Caleb replied with a warm smile. When they returned to the cabin, they sat for a moment in comfortable silence. The day had stretched long, but not heavily. It felt like the beginning of something calm, something steady, something built on trust. Nalina finally spoke again, her voice certain. "I am ready to face the problem now, but I know I cannot do it alone. I think your presence will help them understand the pressure they caused, even if they did not mean harm." Caleb nodded. "Then I will go with you. Not to speak for you, but to stand beside you." She smiled, a quiet, grateful smile that lit her eyes. "That is exactly the help I needed." Though the road ahead was uncertain, both knew that solutions built on respect had the strongest chance of success. And so, the bond between them grew not suddenly, not dramatically, but gently and naturally. Like sunlight warming the land, one slow moment at a time. The next morning brought a soft, steady light over the land. The kind of light that seemed to promise a better day. Caleb stepped outside early, letting the cool air wake him fully. He took a deep breath, listening to the quiet rustle of pine branches and the distant trickle of the creek. Today was the day he planned to help Nalina speak with the traders. But even more importantly, it was the day she would reclaim her peace. Inside the cabin, Nalina was awake and preparing herself. She braided her long dark hair and adjusted the woven strap of her medicine pouch. Though her body still held signs of tiredness, her spirit appeared steadier. She moved with a gentle purpose, like someone who knew she was ready to face something long overdue. Caleb offered her some warm food before they left. She thanked him, eating slowly but with more appetite than before. It encouraged him to see her strength returning. "Are you sure you feel ready?" he asked, not wanting to rush her. She looked up and gave a calm nod. "Yes. I have rested my body and my mind. I feel clear again. And I know I will not be alone this time." Her words carried quiet confidence, something she had been missing before. Caleb felt grateful he could help her reach that state. They packed only what was necessary: water, a few small supplies, and a light blanket in case the weather changed. Caleb saddled his horse, making sure everything was secure. When he helped Nalina mount, she held the saddle with steady hands, her balance better than the day before. Once they started moving, the land stretched open around them, glowing under the morning sun. The path they followed wound through gentle hills and clusters of wild grass. It was a peaceful route, almost too peaceful for the heavy conversation awaiting them. But even so, the quiet landscape helped calm their nerves. Nalina spoke softly during the ride, telling Caleb more about the traders. "They are not bad men," she said. "They simply became too focused on what they wanted. They forgot to listen. I hope we can remind them without harshness." Caleb admired her heart. Many people would have responded with frustration or anger, but she chose patience. It showed the depth of her character. As they approached the area where the traders usually traveled, Caleb became more alert. He wasn't expecting trouble, only wanting to make sure the conversation began gently, without misunderstandings. They reached a small clearing where a group of tents stood near a cluster of cottonwood trees. Smoke rose from a cooking fire, and the aroma of warm bread drifted through the air. The traders were busy with morning tasks, sorting goods, adjusting wagons, preparing supplies. When they noticed Caleb and Nalina approaching, a few of them paused, their expressions curious. One man stepped forward, a friendly-looking fellow with sunburned cheeks and a bright smile. "Well, good morning," he greeted warmly. "We don't see many visitors out here." "What brings you to?" Nalina sat tall in the saddle, keeping her voice steady. "We came to talk. I wish to speak with you and your group." The man gave a surprised but polite nod. "Of course. Come, sit by the fire. We'll listen." Caleb helped her down, and together they moved to the fire circle. The traders gathered around, some sitting, others standing nearby. They seemed genuinely curious, not defensive. Nalina took a slow breath before speaking. "I want to explain something. For many days, you have been asking for herbs and medicines that I prepare for my people. At first, your visits were kind, but over time, they became too frequent. I felt pressured. I felt I had no quiet moments to work or rest." Several traders exchanged glances, looking surprised. They hadn't realized the effect of their persistence. She continued gently, "I know you meant no harm, but your requests became overwhelming. I could not provide as much as you asked without taking away from my own community. The plants need time to grow. The medicine needs time to prepare. It cannot be rushed." One trader, an older man with a thoughtful face, spoke up. "We did not know we caused such worry. We only saw the value of your knowledge. We thought we were building a friendly exchange." "And I wished for that too," she said. "But it became too heavy. I tried to stay patient, but I walked many miles because I felt I needed someone who could help you understand." Caleb added gently, "She came a long way because she didn't want conflict. She only wanted space. I believe all of us can agree that respect makes trade stronger, not pressure." The traders nodded slowly, absorbing the message. A young man with sandy hair looked especially regretful. "We should not have followed you around so much. We thought you were simply busy, not uncomfortable." Nalina's expression softened. "I forgive you. I only ask that you let me choose when to trade, and how much I can give. If I say no, please accept it without visiting again and again." There was a quiet moment, then the friendly man who greeted them spoke. "We agree, truly. We didn't understand how our actions felt from your side. Thank you for explaining it so clearly." Relief washed gently across Nalina's face. She had feared they might misunderstand her again. But instead, they listened with open minds. The traders offered water and invited them to rest before traveling back. Caleb and Nalina stayed for a short time, sharing simple conversation. The air felt lighter now, as though a weight had been lifted from everyone's shoulders. When it was time to leave, one of the traders approached Nalina with a small wrapped parcel. "A gift," he said kindly. "Not for trade, just to show respect." She accepted it with a grateful nod. When she opened it later, she found a beautifully carved wooden pendant, shaped like a leaf. Its smooth lines and simple beauty reminded her of the plants she cared for. She held it gently, touched by their thoughtful gesture. After saying their goodbyes, Caleb and Nalina mounted the horse again and slowly made their way toward the path home. The land felt warmer now, as though the sun itself approved of the calm resolution. As they rode, Nalina said, "You helped more than you know. Without you beside me, I don't think they would have listened the same way. Your presence made my voice stronger." Caleb shook his head modestly. "It was your words that made the difference. I only stood there to show that respect runs both ways." She gave him a soft smile. "Then perhaps both our roles were needed." They continued down the trail, taking a slower pace, enjoying the peaceful scenery. A gentle breeze moved through the tall grass, making it sway like waves across the land. Nalina breathed deeply, feeling the world settle inside her in a new, comforting way. At one point, Caleb guided the horse toward a shaded area where they could rest for a moment. They sat on a large, flat rock overlooking a small valley. The view was quiet and beautiful. Birds circled high above, and small wildflowers dotted the hills. "It feels strange," Nalina said thoughtfully. "I was so troubled not long ago, and now it feels like that worry is fading away." "That's what happens when a problem finally finds a peaceful path," Caleb said gently. "Sometimes the hardest part is taking the first step." She turned her face toward him, her eyes warm. "I would not have had the courage to take that step alone." Caleb looked back at her with a steady kindness. "Maybe the land knew that. Maybe that's why I found you when I did." The idea brought a soft laugh from her lips. "Perhaps the land does carry its own wisdom." They rested a while longer before continuing their journey. The sky above remained bright and clear, as though guiding them back with encouragement. By the time the cabin came into view, the afternoon sun had lowered slightly, casting gentle shadows across the clearing. The place felt familiar and welcoming, like a small, safe corner of the world. Nalina dismounted with ease, her strength returning fully now that her heart was lighter. She stood quietly for a moment, looking around the peaceful surroundings. "You gave me shelter," she said softly. "You gave me time to recover, and you helped me face what I could not face alone. What you did, it was perfect for me." Caleb felt a warmth spread through him at her words. He simply nodded, grateful he could make a difference. They walked toward the cabin together, knowing that something important had grown between them, something built on trust, kindness, and understanding. Neither of them knew exactly what the future would bring, but one thing was certain: they would face it with respect for each other, and with a calm strength that came from the journey they had shared. And the land, vast and quiet around them, seemed to honor that gentle beginning. The days that followed passed quietly, each one bringing a sense of calm that felt almost new to both Caleb and Nalina. After the peaceful conversation with the traders, the land around them seemed softer somehow, as though it recognized that something important had settled. The sky felt wider, the breeze felt kinder, and even the small sounds of daily life seemed to move in a gentle rhythm. Nalina stayed near Caleb's cabin for a short time longer. She wanted to make sure her strength was fully restored before returning to her community. During those days, she helped gather herbs from nearby trails and taught Caleb simple things about plants: how to identify leaves, how to smell for freshness, and how to understand the quiet signs of the earth. Her knowledge amazed him, and he listened with genuine interest, grateful for everything she shared. In return, Caleb taught her small things about ranch work: how to calm a restless horse, how to mend a loose fence wire, and how to understand the way cattle moved across the land. The lessons were simple, but they created a steady connection between them, like two threads woven into a single fabric. They did not rush any moment. The quietness between them felt natural, not empty. One afternoon, while they rested under the shade of a tall cedar tree, Nalina looked out at the rolling hills and spoke in a thoughtful tone. "I feel different now. Before, I felt surrounded by noise. Now it feels like my heart can breathe again." Caleb looked at her with a gentle expression. "Peace returns slowly," he said. "But when it does—" She turned to him, her eyes full of quiet gratitude. "You helped create that peace. Not by speaking loudly or forcing anything, but by standing beside me in a calm way. That made all the difference." He smiled shyly. "Sometimes the best help is the kind that moves softly." The moment felt warm and honest, like sunlight settling on a still pond. Soon, the day came when Nalina felt ready to return home. Her strength had returned fully, and her spirit felt grounded again. But leaving the cabin brought a mix of emotions. She stood at the doorway with her medicine pouch secured at her side and her hair braided neatly. Caleb saddled his horse, preparing to accompany her part of the way. Out of courtesy and friendship, before they left, they both took a moment to look around the small space that had become important to them. For Nalina, it had been a place of rest and recovery. For Caleb, it had become a place filled with quiet meaning, because her presence had brought new warmth to the cabin. As they began their ride toward her community, the land seemed to greet them with open arms. Birds fluttered from the trees, and the wind moved gently through the tall grass. The silence between them was comfortable, full of unspoken understanding. When they reached the wide valley that lay just before the Apache settlement, they paused for a moment at the crest of a hill. The view below was calm and welcoming. Small fires burned softly in the distance, and the roofs of the homes glowed warm in the sunlight. Nalina breathed deeply. "It feels good to be near home again," she said. "You deserve that comfort," Caleb replied. They rode slowly down the hill, and as they approached the settlement, several members of her community came forward to greet her. Their faces lit up with relief when they saw her. They embraced her gently, speaking in warm tones, grateful for her safe return. Caleb stayed back respectfully, understanding that this was her moment. Yet, he noticed how she glanced toward him every so often, as if silently inviting him to remain close. After greeting her people, Nalina introduced Caleb with simple, clear words. "This is the man who helped me when I needed support. He treated me with kindness and patience." Her community members nodded politely to Caleb. Some had seen him before from a distance, but this time they looked at him with a new awareness, recognizing the good he had done for one of their own. An elder, with silver hair and calm eyes, approached Caleb. "Thank you," the elder said softly. "It is rare for paths to cross in such a meaningful way. You showed respect when it was needed most." Caleb bowed his head slightly, humbled. She deserved care. Anyone would have done the same, but the elder smiled gently. "Not everyone chooses kindness. You did." The moment felt warm and sincere. Over the next few days, Caleb returned to his ranch work, but life did not simply go back to the way it was before. Something had shifted inside him. The open land still felt familiar, but now it carried memories of shared conversations, quiet lessons, and trust formed in unexpected ways. Meanwhile, within her community, Nalina resumed her work with renewed energy. She walked the trails again, gathering herbs and preparing medicines. But now she did so with a lighter heart. Her friends noticed that she smiled more, and her steps felt more purposeful. The weight that once pressed on her spirit had lifted, replaced by a calm confidence. Even though they lived in different worlds, Caleb and Nalina did not allow distance to separate them. Every so often, Caleb would ride toward the outskirts of her land, stopping at a familiar oak tree where the border of their territories met. And many times, Nalina would walk there to meet him. They talked about simple things: changing seasons, the behavior of animals, new herbs she discovered, or small improvements Caleb made around his cabin. Their conversations were easy, their laughter soft and natural. Each meeting added another layer of understanding between them. One day, as they sat on a fallen tree trunk near the creek, Nalina held the wooden pendant the traders had given her. She traced her fingers along the carved lines thoughtfully. "This reminds me of everything that happened," she said. "Not just the troubles, but the peace that came after. It reminds me of the choice you made to help me." Caleb tilted his head slightly. "Do you ever regret any part of it?" She shook her head with gentle certainty. "No. Every step, even the difficult ones, led me to the people who cared, led me to you." Her words settled deep into Caleb's heart. He looked at her with a quiet sincerity that he rarely showed to anyone else. "Meeting you changed my days. The land feels different now, like I see it with new eyes." They shared a calm silence, listening to the water flowing gently nearby. Back in her community, many of the elders noticed changes too. They saw how Nalina carried herself with new steadiness, and how her eyes brightened when she spoke of her time away. They never questioned the friendship between her and Caleb, because they could see it came from a place of mutual respect and goodness. As weeks turned into months, the connection they had formed only grew stronger, not because they forced it, but because it came naturally. Their worlds were different, but their hearts found common ground. They both held a deep love for the land, a respect for silence, and a belief that kindness could bridge even the widest spaces. News spread quietly among nearby ranching families and Apache groups. People spoke about the cowboy who helped an Apache woman without expecting anything in return, and about the woman who found her strength again with the support of someone beyond her own community. Their story became a gentle reminder that understanding did not require grand gestures, only patience and a willingness to listen. One calm evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky with warm colors, Caleb and Nalina stood together on a hill overlooking both their lands. The horizon stretched endlessly before them, glowing with a soft golden light. Nalina looked at Caleb with warm eyes. That day when I said, "I can't take it anymore," I felt lost. But now, when I look back, I see it was the moment that brought me to a new beginning. Caleb smiled softly. And it brought me to someone I never expected to meet. Their paths had crossed at a moment when both needed something: support, understanding, companionship. And through simple actions, honest words, and quiet courage, they created a connection that neither the land nor time could easily erase. Standing together, they felt the gentle truth settle between them. Sometimes, the right person appears at the right moment, not to change your world, but to help you see it clearly again. And in that clarity, a new kind of peace grows steady, warm, and lasting.